When you're in Japan, you should not be walking down the street and eating something at the same time. But why? Well, there are three reasons, and the third reason will probably surprise you. Japan with Dennis. I'm Dennis. I lived in Japan, I speak the language, and I love the Japanese culture. I'll share with you tips you need to know before you travel to Japan and key cultural things you need to do while there. I'll show you where you can go and what you can do to get off the tourist track and experience the real Japan. And learning a few Japanese words and phrases can only enrich our experience. 日本に行きましょうか? All right, you might have heard this before, that when you're in Japan, there are some social rules, and you've heard of many of them. One of them that you might have heard of is that you shouldn't walk down the street in a public place and be eating something at the same time. But I think it's very helpful, having lived in Japan, not to just hear those as rules, but to understand why that is. When you understand the why behind their culture, well, you just have a greater tendency to want to obey that part of their culture. So, number one. The first reason why you shouldn't walk down the street and eat something at the same time has to do with Japan's thoughts of cleanliness. They think that as you're walking, you eat your corn dog or hot dog or chips or whatever, that not all of the food is making your mouth. It's probably some of it falling on the street. And they're probably not wrong, but if you're from the United States or other parts of the world, you might think, so what? The street's dirty, so what if it has a few little particles of food on there? It's already dirty, we don't care. Well, in Japan, that makes a big difference. If you look at the streets in Tokyo, for instance, as you walk down the streets, you'll find that you'll be hard-pressed to find pieces of garbage, even on the street or on the sidewalk or in the gutter. Oh, they're there occasionally, but if you find them, it's probably because a foreigner left it there. And soon enough, it's going to be picked up. That's because they consider the street fairly clean. Now, don't get me wrong, the ground to them is all dirty. They're not going to sit on the ground. But the idea of food coming out of your mouth, even little particles or pieces, just sounds a little bit grotesque to them. It's a little bit repulsive. And they like their streets and their environment to be very, very clean. So the first reason is cleanliness. Okay, the number two reason is that the Japanese people like to compartmentalize smells. Now, it may not smell like much to you if you're used to walking down the streets, especially in New York. You have all kinds of smells. Well, you might smell the food in one sense. You might smell a bag of garbage sitting outside of a store in another. You might even smell a homeless person as you walk past them. I get that. There's lots of smells, and we're used to managing that, but they are not. They manage their smells very carefully. So, in other words, you may not think that they can smell your food, but they can. They're very, very sensitive to those smells. And they think the smell of the corn dog you're eating or whatever it is that you're eating should be kept at or near the restaurant that you got it, or somewhere else in your own house or your own kitchen. And so they're very sensitive smells, and they feel like people eating outside in a public place amongst everybody is bringing those smells into the environment, and their way of privacy is almost related to what they can see, hear, and smell at the same time. So they're very sensitive of that. Just to give you another example and to further that point, that we always tell people don't wear strong colognes in Japan. Well, they may smell good to you and you may be oversensitized or non-sensitized to those things, but when you're in Japan, they can smell you. If you wear some cologne, it smells good to you, but to them it smells, well, they're just not used to it. So if you find yourself in a small restaurant or environment and all of a sudden the Japanese people start moving from their table to somewhere else, it's probably because they can smell you. And what smells too good to you just is, it's not that it's not good, but it's just too strong to them. And so they don't like that. They're not used to smells. Because of that, we tell people when you go to Japan, don't wear a deodorant as much as you wear an antiperspirant. They want things to smell neutral. So if they have a deodorant over there, it's going to bring it back to smelling like, well, nothing. That's what they want. They want it to smell like nothing. Of course, we have deodorant that smells all kinds of things, flowers and food and oranges and whatever. We're always liking these smells about us, but they would prefer a neutral smell. Now, the third reason is perhaps the most interesting and the most culturally related, and that is that to be eating food while you're walking down the street is a little bit too casual and dishonors, get this, the food. That's right. I know food doesn't really feel a sense of honor, but from their perspective, food is almost a sacred thing. Maybe that goes back in history, I don't know. But they want to express a certain amount of gratitude and respect and honor to the food they're eating. That's why when you look at Japanese food, it looks beautiful. They go to great painstaking effort to make their food look good on the plate. Everything looks very, very pretty. Well, in a way, that's kind of like honoring the food. Another thing that they'll do is before they eat it, they'll say, "Itadakimasu." Itadakimasu, which is I humbly partake. And that also is just a way of being grateful for what they have and honoring the food. All right, so that honor is pretty important. We kind of do that too in several situations in the United States. We may not express that much honor, but we might bow our head, we might say grace, we might just say thank you for this food in our heart. They do that too, but they think that eating and walking at the same time is a little bit dishonorable to the food. They like to have more respect for the food. So those are the 3 reasons why you shouldn't eat and walk in Japan. Knowing those reasons, hopefully that'll help you to be part of their culture, obey their culture, and blend in.